Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naran Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So this morning we are reading from Shrimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, titled The Son of Drona Punished, Text 42. Tata hritam Pashuva Pashabhaddam Avanmukam Karma Jugupsitena Nirikshya Krishna Pakritam Gurusutam Vamasvabhava Kripaya Nanamacha Tatahritam Pashuvat Pashabaddham Avanmukam Karma Jugupsitena Nirikshya Krishna Pakritam Guru Sutam Vamasvabhava Kripaya Nanamacha Tatahritam Pashuvat Pashabaddham Avanmukam Karma Jugupsitena Nirikshya Krishna Pakritam Gurustutam Vamasvabhava Kripaya Nanamacha Tatahritam Pashuvat Pashabaddham Avanmukam Karma Jugupsitena Nirikshya Krishnapakritam Gurosutam Vamasvabhava Kripaya Nanamacha Tatahritam Pashuvat Pashabaddham Avanmukham Karma Jugupsitena Nirikshya Krishnapakritam Gurosutam Vamasvabhava Kripaya Nanamacha. Tatha, thus, ahritam, brought in, pashuvat, like an animal, pashabaddham, tied with ropes, avakmukham, without a word in his mouth, karma, activities, jugupsitena, being heinous, nirikshya, by seeing, Krishna, Draupadi, apakritam, the doer of the degrading, Guru, the teacher, Sutam, son, Vama, beautiful, Swabhava, nature, Kripaya, out of compassion, Nanama, offered obeisances, Cha, and. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Sri Sutta Goswami said, Draupadi then saw Ashwatthama, who was bound with ropes like an animal and silent for having enacted the most inglorious murder. Due to her female nature, and due to her being naturally good and well behaved, she showed him due respects as a Brahmana. Purport. Ashwatthama was condemned by the Lord himself, and he was treated by Arjuna just like a culprit, not like the son of a Brahmana or teacher. But when he was brought before Srimati Draupadi, she, although begrieved for the murder of her sons, and although the murderer was present before her, could not withdraw the due respect generally offered to a Brahmana or to the son of a Brahmana. This is due to her mild nature as a woman. Women as a class are no better than boys, and therefore they have no discriminatory power like that of a man. Ashwatthama proved himself to be an unworthy son of Dronacharya or of a Brahmana. And for this reason, he was condemned by the greatest authority, Lord Sri Krishna. And yet, a mild woman could not withdraw her natural courtesy for a Brahmana. Even to date, in a Hindu family, a woman shows proper respect to the Brahmana caste, however fallen and heinous a Brahma Bandhu may be. But the men have begun to protest against Brahma Bandhus who are born in families of good Brahmanas, but by action are less than Shudras. The specific words used in this shloka are Vama Swabhava, mild and gentle by nature. A good man or woman accepts anything very easily, but a man of average intelligence does not do so. But anyway, we should not give up our reason and discriminatory power just to be gentle. One must have good discriminatory power to judge a thing on its merit. We should not follow the mild nature of a woman and thereby accept that which is not genuine. Ashwatthama may be respected by a good-natured woman, but that does not mean that he is as good as a genuine Brahmana. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to text 42 of chapter 7 in the matter of the son of Drona punished, canto 1 of the Shrimad Bhagavatam. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Srirupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha Namaum Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swamaniti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaura Katha Dhamadaya Nagaragramatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadhanadase Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhe Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham bande shigurintarinam yatkripatamaham bande Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Katanchana Smrite Yasmin Dushkaram Sukaram Bhavet Vismrite Viparitam Syat Sri Chaitanyam Namamitam. This is a very strong purport. Could be considered controversial in our current modern civilization. However, we have to understand the whole context of this chapter to understand what exactly is happening. We cannot look at something in isolation. We have to look at the whole chapter. This is a very interesting chapter, and unless we look at it through the eyes of Srila Prabhupada, it is easily possible for us to come up with conclusions which may be rational, but which are speculative in nature, because there are many intricate things that are going on in this particular pastime, which Srila Prabhupada brings out very nicely and explicitly in his purports. One thing that, in this chapter, we see that initially Krishna is asking Arjuna, kill him immediately. Now, this is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he's asking Arjuna, kill him immediately. But Arjuna does not do so. We know that in the Mahabharata, when Krishna told Yudhishthira that tell Dronacharya that Ashwathama is dead. Now, this is the same Ashwathama we're talking about here. Ashwathama is dead. Ashwathama, the elephant, is what Krishna meant, which anyway, elephant called Ashwathama is dead. So there, when Krishna asked Yudhishthira to say that Ashwathama is dead, then Yudhishthira hesitated. And because of that hesitation, Yudhishthira, although called Dharmaraj, and because of his spotless character, his chariot used to never touch the ground. It used to be a little above the ground, on the sky, a little above. But the moment he hesitated, when Krishna asked him to say that Ashwathama was dead, immediately the chariot hit the ground. Now, modern scholars say that his chariot hit the ground because he lied. But the Vaishnavacharyas say that his chariot hit the ground because he hesitated to carry out an instruction from Krishna. Now, how is it that Yudhishthira hesitated? Yudhishthira, the Dharmaraj, and Prabhupada explains that the Pandavas are eternal associates of the Lord. So how can an internal associate of the Lord not obey the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So there, what happens is that the Lord, through His pure devotees, He teaches the principles of religion. They are the perfect instruments to teach the principles of religion. So it is not that Yudhishthira was lacking in his love for Krishna. He was already, there are eternal associates of the Lord. But Krishna put him into such a situation where he hesitated. So that this is for the instruction of the people in general, that Krishna, that there should be no hesitation in carrying out the instruction of Krishna. But here we see that a little before this verse, a few verses before, Krishna is asking Arjuna, kill him immediately, he says. But Arjuna does not do so. However, it is explained in the same text that Krishna was actually testing Arjuna in a sense of duty. And Arjuna, being a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, could understand the mind of Arjuna, being a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, could understand the mind of Krishna. So it is said there are three kinds of disciples. The first class of disciple is someone who understands the mind of the spiritual master without the spiritual master having to say it. The second class disciple is one who carries out whatever is explicitly instructed by the spiritual master. The third is, even if the spiritual master directly instructs, the disciple does not carry it out. Now here, this is not an example of Krishna saying something and Arjuna not carrying it out because he was a third class disciple. Rather, it is an example of a first class disciple where Krishna was actually testing him by asking him to kill Ashwatthama immediately. But Arjuna does not do so. And Prabhupada, in an earlier purport, he writes it very nicely that Lord Sri Krishna encouraged Arjuna outwardly just to test Arjuna's sense of duty. It is not that Arjuna was incomplete in his sense of duty, nor was Lord Sri Krishna unaware of Arjuna's sense of duty. But Lord Sri Krishna put to test many of his pure devotees just to magnify the sense of duty. The gopis were put to such tests as well. Prahlad Maharaj is also put to such a test. All pure devotees come out successful in the respective tests by the Lord. So Arjuna came out successful by not immediately killing Ashwatthama, although Krishna instructed Arjuna to kill Ashwatthama. So Krishna was actually testing Arjuna's sense of duty. Now here, Ashwatthama is brought before Draupadi and he is tied with ropes like an animal. And here we see that Draupadi, when she saw Ashwatthama, she immediately offered him obeisances. There's quite a contrast that Arjuna has bound Ashwatthama with ropes like an animal with Krishna's encouragement, and Draupadi is offering obeisances to Ashwatthama. Earlier on, in a purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that Sridhar Swami is the original commentator on the Bhagavatam. He explains that it was the right thing to do, to bind Ashwatthama with ropes like an animal. That was the dharmic thing to do. So there's nothing wrong in that. But here we see that Draupadi is offering obeisances to Ashwatthama. And therefore it is said that this is due to Vamasvabhava. So Prabhupada explains that Vama basically essentially means mild and good, gentle by nature, especially refers to the nature of a woman. But so Prabhupada explains, a good man or woman accepts anything very easily, but a man of average intelligence does not do so But anyway, we should not give up our reason and discriminatory power just to be gentle. One must have good discriminatory power to judge a thing on its merit. So here, Draupadi's feeling of respect for Ashwathama is not justified according to the principles of Dharma. It is mere sentiment. Therefore, it is said that it is Vamaswabhava. It is born of the conditioned nature of being a woman. Now one can say that Draupadi is also an eternal associate of the Lord. So why is she exhibiting a conditioned nature? In the next sloka, you will see Prabhupada actually glorifies Draupadi for exhibiting this nature and says that because she's a pure devotee of the Lord, she exhibited this nature. So what is it? Is she exhibiting Vamaswabhava? Is she exhibiting the characteristic of a pure devotee, of a perfected pure devotee? What is it? Actually, it is all, it is one incident, but there are different levels of what is happening. Krishna, he shows through his pure devotees examples for the people in general. So he's showing an example of Vamaswabhava through the person of Draupadi. She's an eternal associate of the Lord, so there's no question of her being conditioned. At the same time, she's an Uttamadhikari. So therefore, an Uttamadhikari thinks that everyone is superior to oneself. Everyone in this world is superior to oneself. So therefore, her showing respect to Ashwathama is also due to her being a pure devotee of the Lord, an Uttamadhikari, who thinks that everyone is superior to oneself. So in this way, there is no contradiction. So Krishna is doing both things. One is to show to the world what is Vamaswabhava, the conditioned nature of a woman in such a circumstance. And the other is to also show the glory of Draupadi, that as a pure devotee, she was unhesitantly she offered respect to Ashwathama. The same thing happens even in the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna's wanting to not fight with his cousins is considered as a sign of miserly weakness. At the same time, it is also considered that a symptom of a pure devotee. So it is actually one incident, but there are different levels of things that are happening. And that is why we need the acharyas to explain to us what exactly is going on. Now, first of all, here Prabhupada speaks strongly about Vamaswabhava. One should not lose one's discriminatory power. In subsequent verses, we see that Prabhupada, Krishna, Yudhishthira, Dharmaraj, and Krishna himself, and others, Nakula, Sahadeva, they all accept Draupadi's argument. So on the one hand, here it said it's Vamaswabhava. Later on, the next few verses, you will see that Krishna himself accepts the argument of Draupadi, and Yudhishthira, Dharmaraj accepts the argument of Draupadi. So what is going on? So actually what's happening is, here in this particular text, Arjuna is offering respects, has a feeling of respect towards Ashwathama and is offering obeisances to Ashwathama. That is what is being condemned. Her feeling of respect towards Ashwathama and offering him obeisances is what is being condemned. But in the subsequent verses, you will see that Draupadi is feeling respect towards Dronacharya and Kripi, the mother of Ashwathama. And due to her feeling respect for Dronacharya and Kripi, she says that Ashwathama should not be killed. And she gives a lot of explanations that she's also a mother like me. So she will also have to go through grief like me. Then she says, Dronacharya actually taught you, tells Arjuna, he taught you the military art. Therefore, it is not befitting to put him into grave by killing his son. So like this, she presents various arguments. So that is generated due to a feeling of respect for Dronacharya and for Kripi. And though that feeling of respect is based on dharma, and based on that consideration, Ashwatthama should be spared. Therefore, that argument is accepted by Krishna and Yudhishthira and other Pandavas, of course, except Bhimasena. So, here we see, here what is happening is, Draupadi's feeling of respect towards Ashwatthama, which is not acceptable. But Draupadi's feeling of respect towards Dronacharya and Kripi is accepted in the subsequent verses. So, two things are simultaneously happening. One is, due to her Vama Swabhava, she has lost her sense of discrimination, is offering respects to Ashwatthama, which is not in line with the principles of Dharma. But subsequently, you see that the same woman is exhibiting, Draupadi is also exhibiting the discriminatory power, right discriminatory power, and is speaking from based on the principles of Dharma, which is accepted by none other than Lord Krishna himself, Dharmaraj, and all the other Pandavas except Bhima, of course. So, that's why this chapter is very, very intricate. There are many, many things that are going on here. So, unless we read this chapter through the eyes of Srila Prabhupada, it is very easy that we can get misled of what actually is going on here. We see that here, it is not that, oh, women have no sense of discriminatory power at all. That is not what Prabhupada is trying to say here at all. Which, if that were to be the case, then how is it that Draupadi is exhibiting proper discriminatory power in the next verses? So it is not that woman has no discriminatory power at all. But all that is being said in this verse is that in certain circumstances, her discriminatory power can be overwhelmed by her sentiment. So that is what exactly happened here. Her discriminatory power was overwhelmed by her sentiment, and therefore she offers respects to Ashwatthama and thinks that Ashwatthama should not be bound with ropes like an animal. So that is what is being referred to as Vama Swabhava. But later on, she also offers very, correct arguments which speak that Ashwatthama should not be killed. So, and Krishna accepts that argument. So finally, we see that when Draupadi presents those arguments due to her feeling of respect for Dronacharya and Kripi, saying that Ashwatthama should be spared, Krishna accepts it. Then he smiles at Arjuna. And then he says, now you have two great personalities have spoken. And so there, of course, Bhima speaks, saying, no, he should be killed. That's it. So Bhima is also right. So then Krishna, he smiles at Arjuna. And when Krishna smiles at Arjuna, Arjuna immediately understands. Krishna actually says also that she should be killed, he should not be killed. So he says both. So immediately Arjuna understands when Krishna smiles, what is the right thing to do? To kill him and not to kill him. How it is to be done. So he cuts off the jewel from his head. So like that. So we see that pastime happening where he both kills and not kills. So to insult a Brahmana like that is as good as death. So he both kills and not kills. So right from the beginning, Krishna was actually testing Arjuna's sense of duty. Whether in this circumstance, he would know what is the right thing to do or not. This is testing. Of course, he's a pure devotee, he would know. Therefore, he understood also. But Krishna was testing Arjuna to show to the world how a pure devotee always understands the mind of the Lord and always does the right thing. There is no question of him doing the wrong thing. He always does the right thing because he understands the mind of the Lord, because he is a perfect, pure devotee. So this is the nature of Vedic scripture, that unless we read it through the eyes of an authority, we would not know what exactly is going on. What are all the conclusions? Therefore, it is important that scriptures, especially in the Vaishnava tradition, we don't approach scripture directly. We approach scripture only through the eyes of the Acharya. And for us in ISKCON, that Acharya is Prabhupada. So therefore, we try to understand this whole thing, the whole episode of the son of Drona being punished through the eyes of Srila Prabhupada. Now, why do I stress this? Because if we don't see it through his eyes, we could always come up with conclusions which are different than what he has given. Let me give you an example. This is one prominent ISKCON scholar, while commenting on this episode, says that here we see there is a tension between justice and morality, justice and compassion, which is true. That that Bhima was arguing on the side of justice, and in fact Krishna and Arjuna also, Krishna also argued on the side of justice initially, but he also accepts the argument in favor of compassion. But both of them have to be based on dharmic principles. Not that there can be compassion independent of the codes of dharma. As long as compassion is within the codes of dharma, it can be accepted. So that is actually what is going on. So there are two classes of arguments, and they're apparently contradictory. So we understand what is going on through Prabhupada's writing here. But as I was saying, that this prominent ISKCON scholar, while commenting on this tension between justice and compassion, writes the following. He says that Krishna ordered punishment, but then changed his position upon hearing a compassionate plea from his devotee, Draupadi. So this is first of all wrong, because earlier on we see that Prabhupada makes it very clear that Krishna is unchanged in all circumstances. He's unchanged. This is the nature of God. This is Krishna. In all circumstances, he knows precisely what is the right thing, because dharmattu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. So Krishna exactly knows what is to be done. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, this is the last sentence of text 34, we are in text 42 today. So he writes that Krishna is unchanged in all circumstances. So right from the beginning, Krishna knew what exactly is to be done. Therefore it is said, the Bhagavatam itself says, that Krishna was examining Arjuna in the principles of religion. And finally, he said one thing, then he wanted his pure devotees also to speak. That's what he does. He makes his whole arrangement. He speaks one thing, then he wants his pure devotees also to speak, like Arjuna and Draupadi. And then he says, both are right. Then he expects Arjuna, how are you going to act in this circumstance? And by Krishna's smile, Arjuna immediately understood. And Krishna's words, of course, saying that he should be killed, not killed, so how will you act now? He smiles. And immediately Arjuna understands what is in Krishna's mind. And what was in Krishna's mind, it is not that he had a different idea before and suddenly he heard Draupadi and then he changed his mind. No, Krishna is not like that. Krishna perfectly, in all circumstances, he knows what is the perfect thing to do. Now, this is what happens when we approach the Bhagavatam directly. But if we approach it through the eyes of Srila Prabhupada, we don't have this kind of confusion that is coming up, where we clearly understand what exactly is going on. Krishna is actually not changing his position. Krishna's position is the same. Krishna is actually revealing his position. It is not that he is changing his position. Krishna's position becomes revealed gradually and fully as the verses progress. So that is one thing that is very important in this particular chapter of the Bhagavatam. I've always found this to be a very fascinating chapter because there are many different things going on in this chapter. And we really need to carefully study Prabhupada's purports here to understand what exactly is going on. Now this question may come up that Bhagavatam, Prabhupada, this Bhagavatam is meant for, it is meant for the Nirmatsaranam Satam. Yeah. So everything that is meant in the Bhagavatam, written in the Bhagavatam, is meant either for those who are Nirmatsaranam Satam. I mean, of course, we all have to be Nirmatsaranam Satam, but it is also meant for attaining love of Godhead. That is the purpose of the Bhagavatam. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that the Shrimad Bhagavatam is the Pramanam Amalam. This is our book, the Bhagavatam. So therefore, there is nothing that is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, either in the text or in Srila Prabhupada's purports, which are not meant to help us to attain love of Godhead. Every sentence of the Bhagavatam, one can see Krishna in every page of the Bhagavatam, in every sentence of the Bhagavatam. every page of the Bhagavatam, every sentence of the Bhagavatam is meant to help us to attain love of Godhead. Everything is intricately connected. So then the question may come up, now Prabhupada is speaking about women as a class. So does this mean that this applies to only non-devotee women? What about devotee women? What about devotee men? The conditionings of men, are they applicable only to the ordinary men, or does it apply to devotee men also? First of all, Prabhupada makes this point that neither the men nor the women who have taken to Krishna consciousness are ordinary. They're all not ordinary beings, either the men or the women. But at the same time, it would be foolish to say that because they are not ordinary, they're also perfected. It is like saying that someone is in a school, someone is in grade 1 in a school, and someone in grade 12 in a school. Both of them are in a school. Both of them are not ordinary children who are not going to school. They are all going to school. You can say in that sense they are not ordinary because they are going to school. So we all take into the process of pure devotional service. That process is not ordinary. The process of attaining love of Godhead. So therefore, neither the men nor the women who have taken to this are ordinary. But that does not mean that everybody who has taken it has already perfected their life. There is a difference between practicing pure devotee and a perfected pure devotee. Both of them may be called pure devotee. Prabhupada always referred to all the members of the Krishna consciousness movement as pure devotees. Yet, he always made a distinction between the practicing pure devotees and the perfected pure devotees. The perfected pure devotees are those who have attained love for Krishna. And only when one has attained love for Krishna, one is completely freed from one's conditionings. Only then can it be said that one is completely free from one's conditioning. Proportional to the level of one's advancement, the men would be able to overcome their conditioning and the women would be able to overcome their conditioning. But then they would be able to overcome it fully only when they've attained love of Godhead. So what is the conditioning of the men? Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavatam, in the prayers of Queen Kunti, that men have this mentality, they are the Lord, they are the boss. So they find it not so easy to surrender to Krishna. So this is the Purusha Bhava. The men have this Purusha Bhava, that I am the Lord, I am the enjoy. They have that to a strong degree. Therefore, Prabhupada says that women have an advantage over men when it comes to bhakti, because they can easily surrender unto the Supreme Lord. So unless men are able to overcome that conditioning, they will not be able to attain love of Godhead. So as one progresses on the path of pure devotional service, one gradually overcomes that conditioning. Similarly, here it speaks about women as a class. So they have their own conditioning, which here is mentioned about Vamasvabhava. So unless a woman attains love of Godhead, she cannot be above the Vamasvabhava. She can gradually progress and give it up. But it's not that instantly a man can give up Purusha Bhava or a woman can give up Vamasvabhava. It does not happen like that. It happens over an active cultivation process of Krishna consciousness. So yes, whatever instructions are there in the Bhagavatam, we should think that it's all applicable to us. It's not just applicable to some karmi woman or karmi man. No, it's all applicable to us. To the extent that we have advanced in Krishna consciousness, to that extent, we are successful in overcoming the conditionings of Maya. And we should be very honest about our position. And unless we are honest about our position, we cannot attain love of Godhead. That is a very, very important qualification. That humility, to know, you proper writes in one place, humility means knowledge. Knowledge means to know things as they are. So we should know exactly what we are. Unless we attain love of Godhead, we will definitely have our conditionings. And we should be careful about those conditionings. And we should be careful that those conditionings don't obstruct the progress in our Krishna consciousness. So even though the conditionings may be there, if one recognizes the conditioning and tries to overcome them by sincerely holding on to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because these conditionings generally are very, very, very difficult to overcome in one lifetime. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like no other incarnation. That's why Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Korohe Vichar, Vichar Korile Pabe Chitta Chamatkar. The hairs on your body will stand on your end if you just contemplate the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Traditionally, people had to go through so many lifetimes to attain love of Godhead and by overcoming their conditioning and attain love of Godhead. But for that to happen in one lifetime, it's inconceivable how it can happen in one lifetime. For example, if we consider the lifetime of Lord Brahma, he lives for example, Kali Yuga is 432,000 years, 432,000 years. 10 times that is equal to one Yuga cycle. 1,000 such Yuga cycles is equal to 12 days of Brahma. 2,000 such Yuga cycles is equal to 24 hours of Brahma. Brahma lives like that for 365 days. That is equal to 1 year. And Brahma lives like that for 100 years. So it is just an inconceivable lifespan, Brahma. And we have lived for not one lifetime of Brahma, we have lived for infinite lifetimes of Brahma. And that is the extent to which we have been in this material world. So the amount of conditioning that we come with is enormous, it is inconceivable. And for us to be able to overcome that conditioning in one lifetime and attain love of Godhead is definitely not possible without the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So therefore, we should strongly take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by taking shelter of his representative Srila Prabhupada, and we can take shelter of Srila Prabhupada through his purports to the Shrimad Bhagavatam. Every word, every alphabet is meant for us. Every alphabet is meant for us, is meant for our purification. If we approach the Bhagavatam in that spirit, then we shall be able to make rapid progress on the path of Krishna consciousness. Yesterday, I was reading this book, I'll Build You a Temple. Prabhupada asked Giriraj Maharaj to write a book on the Juhu story. So there, Maharaj has written this book. It's a very fascinating book. It's called I'll Build You a Temple, the Juhu story. So Maharaj finally brought out that book. And there, Prabhupada is repeatedly, when he's speaking to the Indian men and women and introducing his disciples, he says, look at them, look at how happy they are, look at how blissful they are, look at all the habits that they had given up. Prabhupada is very proud of it. And in fact, he says, look at how blissful. That is one thing that he repeatedly tries to bring up. Look at how happy they are. They have no complaints. And including all the donors and the life members, they were also very surprised because all these devotees, they were living in very, very difficult conditions. On the Juhu land, I've lived in India and I've lived in a house where there are rats also, but I've never had the experience of rats biting me. But in the Juhu land, the rats were so big that in the morning when the devotees would wake up, there would be a pool of blood near their legs because of rats biting them. And it was that bad, and still the devotees never asked the donors, the life members for any facility. They never asked, we are struggling, can you help us? No, because they were absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So that is the magic of a pure devotee. By his presence, he invokes Vrindavan, where everything is blissful. So the Bhaktivedanta purports in the Bhagavatam provide us access to the spiritual world, the world of unlimited bliss, due to which we shall be easily able to overcome all our conditionings and attain love of Godhead in this very lifetime, provided, as Prabhupada says, we chant our 16 rounds offenselessly. At least we make an endeavor and eventually chant the 16 rounds offenselessly and increase our chanting. And as Prabhupada said, it should be like our life breath. So I think I'll stop here if there are any comments or questions. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much for your lecture. It was very enlightening. My question is a bit tricky because it's dealing with Dham Mayapur.
Dham Tattva, yes.
And it's somewhat connected to a point you made in the lecture that the Lord will sometimes use his pure devotees to teach lessons.
Yes.
So sometimes they will perform activities that externally, or say things that externally appear to be incorrect, but it's the plan of the Lord for education. So sometimes we're saying so we understand essentially that anybody who resides or anybody who's born or taken a birth
So I'll just repeat word by word so that later I may forget the question. So I'll repeat word by word. So you say, not word by word, I'll paraphrase it. So you're saying that about Dham Tattva, it is said that birth in a Dham is not ordinary. At the same time, we may see that those who are born in the Dham may also perform activities which are not...
it's not just on the surface level
Really deep you mean? Really bad activities. Okay.
So how do we understand that? Is it just the plan of the Lord, which one can we stay, which one is an activity sinful,
Okay. Whether an activity is sinful or not. Okay. So first thing is that all those born in a dham are not pure devotees, are not perfected pure devotees. So there may be perfected pure devotees, but who will follow the codes of dharma. That is one of the things with pure devotees. They don't break the codes of dharma. There's no such thing as a pure devotee breaking the codes of dharma. They may not follow all the regulative principles. That's a different thing. Like waking up in the morning and things like that. For them, whole day is the Brahma Muhurta. Example. That makes no difference to them. So in that sense, they may not follow all the regulative principles, but definitely they would not commit sinful activities. There's no question about them committing sinful activities. Yes, sometimes, due to the pastime of the Lord. For example, let's say Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I mean, of course, he wrote an autobiography and he told his son, this is for you, don't publish it. But he published it anyway. So now the whole world reads about Bhaktivinoda Thakur's biography. And there it speaks about how he used to eat meat before. And Prabhupada was asked this question, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is an eternal associate of the Lord. How could he eat meat? Right? So there Prabhupada responds by saying that he is always under the control of the internal energy. So, and this is not things for your ordinary understanding. It's very difficult to understand. So, but the point is that at some point in time, they fully manifest. They're covered by the Lord for certain reasons. We don't know what the reasons are. But they fully manifest their nature as an eternal associate of the Lord at some point in time. But if you're talking about somebody who's never manifested the whole life, living all sinful activities, that is very difficult to understand. What is the purpose of such this thing? But normally, those are eternal associates of the Lord, they manifest that nature. Like Prabhupada apparently was a follower of Gandhi and also a nationalistic movement which Prabhupada condemned later on. In the purports and all, Prabhupada condemned. This is the ass mentality. Think about one's own country. The whole world is Lord's country and things like that, We are Vasudeva Kutumbakam. The whole world is Krishna's. So why only India and things like that? But anyway, the point is that, these are due to the arrangements of the Lord. But at a certain point, they manifest fully their nature as an eternal associate of the Lord. So, but if they don't manifest that, they're just performing these kind of activities, then, first of all, it is not that the activity has to be accepted. There are two different things, the activity and the person committing the activity. Okay. So let's take Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for example. Previously he ate meat. So he's not to be considered ordinary in that condition of life. But that does not mean that we say because Bhaktivinoda Thakur ate meat before he spread the Krishna conscious movement, therefore we meat eating is also okay. We don't say that. The activity is all prescribed by the codes of dharma. If a pure devotee performs that activity, he's still not ordinary. Why he performs that activity? Yogamaya is doing it for some reason which we don't understand. That's it. And another reason is, of course, one of the reasons given is that Asura Mohana is said. Asura Mohana means Yogamaya acts in such a way that the ordinary conditioned souls who are not sincere will not get access to a pure devotee. That's also there. I mean, unless one is sincere, one cannot just get an access to a pure devotee. One has to have that sincerity. So, these kind of activities are bewildering. Like, forget about sinful activities. Take, for example, other activities. Like, for example, this particular purport, okay, where Prabhupada is writing about women, right? Some scholars in ISKCON think that, okay, Prabhupada, I mean, may not be some, but at least a few, think that because Prabhupada is educated in Victorian era, and therefore his professors taught him certain positions about women, and they also filter in his Bhaktivedanta purports. But Prabhupada came to teach us spiritual teachings. Therefore, it is not wrong to just ignore these things, because these are all social things. What has this got to do with attaining love of God? That's how they speak. But the point is exactly the opposite. That a pure devotee behaves like an ordinary person sometimes. But here, Bhaktivedanta purports, first of all, that is before Prabhupada established the Krishna conscious movement, there's one phase where he is a follower of Gandhi. But after he took the Krishna consciousness, to say, not after he took means after he manifested, not he took, he manifested his full Krishna consciousness. To say that again he was exhibiting some things like Victoria, that's completely a false theory. There's no question of it. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, once he started manifesting his characteristic as an eternal associate, there's no question about anything that he did which was apparently faulty also. Similarly, Prabhupada, this is not that because he was from a Victorian era, therefore his opinions about women were influenced by that. No. So, the first principle is that a Bhagavatam commentator in a Vaishnava tradition is not an ordinary person. And whatever is written in Bhagavatam is considered sacrosanct. You cannot criticize anything that is written in the Bhagavatam. And whatever is written in the Bhagavatam is meant to attain love of God. So there's no question of filtering out this portion of it can be rejected, that portion has to be accepted. It doesn't work like that. So, yes, I agree with you that it is a complicated thing. But generally, the pure devotees who take birth, even if they apparently exhibit activities which are not in line with pure devotional service, externally at least. So, but later on, they fully manifest their characteristic as an eternal associate of the Lord. But there are others who are not like that. Yeah.
So, not that what you said is not practical, but just on a more practical level.
Okay.
If we were to experience or witness such a thing, and sometimes you can experience it personally, what is the time, first of all, what's the mental adjustment we need to have? And how do we deal with such situations on a practical level?
Okay.
Let's say, for example, somebody who's born in the palm, a resident of the palm, basically cheats from us or abuses somebody who's close to us. How do we respond to that in a way where we don't commit offenses to the government's practices?
Prabhupada, showing the example for us, did not allow himself to be cheated by rickshawalas, and like he was going in Mayapur, and he criticized initially because when disciples came initially, they didn't know that you could get things very cheap here. So what they considered cheap was not actually cheap. They were getting cheated. Prabhupada did not like that. Prabhupada wanted devotees not to be cheated. So like that, there is no question about being cheated and accepting things which are not legitimate. We have to do the right things. That Prabhupada always had set that standard for Krishna consciousness, that our movement should be above suspicion. Caesar's wife should be above suspicion. All our dealings, we have to follow the codes of Dharma. We cannot just do something, which is, we cannot cheat, we cannot do all these kind of things. So it's very clear. Now, how do we respond to that? If we have the authority to correct the person, yes, we can correct. But if we don't, what can we do? We have to, bring it up to the attention of his authorities. Or if that doesn't work, what to do? Depend on Krishna. That's it. But we have to go on with our life. Like Prabhupada said, when you are rowing in a boat, there could be a 4th class man, 5th class man. Prabhupada wrote in a letter to one disciple. But how does it matter when we are sitting in a boat whether the person next to me is 4th class or 3rd class? I have to sit in the boat tightly, Prabhupada says, and cross over the river. That's it. So like that, whatever can be fixed can be fixed. Whatever cannot be fixed, what can be done? We have to just go on with our practice. Krishna consciousness. I think it's 9 o'clock, so I'll stop here. If there are any questions, I'll answer them separately. Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.